As I always say, happy Saturday. Welcome to GBR Life Vlog. I'm Caitlin. Just like you saw in the intro video. If you're new to my channel, I am just somebody who talks about literally anything and everything. I have a blog, a vlog, and a podcast. Right now, the podcast I have is called GBR Life of Crimes, and it's about women's crime and the psychology behind it, but I will be coming out with GBR Life of Parenting soon, so if you're interested in a podcast, I do that. I also have my blog at gbrlife.com, and this is my vlog. GBR Life is good, bad, real life. So what you are going to get from me is real life. I'm a mom of 2, and my children are currently 2 years old and 7 months old, soon to be 8 months old. I mean, time is flying, and this is about labor, birthing stories. I had these 2 little munchkins, and they were the most different experiences that I have ever had because they were only 2 of them and they were just different. But bigger so than that, it's because I had my son completely natural, where I will say I had an epidural with both of my children, but I went into labor with my son, and with my daughter, she was induced. So I have the understanding of what it is to be induced and what it is to just completely go into labor. I've had my water broken by the doctor and naturally just break. So I know what the feeling is like for both. Again, I did say I had an epidural for both because contractions are real. They are an actual... yeah, they're intense. And I did not want to go through the entire labor dealing with just the intensity of the contractions. But I also took a Lamaze class. It wasn't called Lamaze. It was called like Birthing 101. I don't remember what it was called, but it was a great class and we learned a lot of things. And I only took 1 to 2 doses of the epidural total. And when I say doses, I mean like they gave the initial injection and then I pressed the nurse pressed the button down the line. But with my daughter, it was a little different. But let me go into the story so you have a little bit of a better idea. Okay, so my son, first pregnancy ever, and I'm sitting there thinking, I don't know what to expect, and oh my God, there's gonna be a baby that has to come out of me in some capacity. So I was nervous, to say the least, and I'm sure if you are a new mom, pregnant currently right now, you are probably thinking the same thing, like this baby has to come out of me in some capacity. I didn't really want to go through C-sections because of the recovery. Recovery for C-sections takes more time, and to be completely honest, it is going to be a little bit more painful in regards to recovery. Let's just be completely honest, it's going to be more painful because recovery is more painful. You're having an actual surgery. They're going to cut you open and take the baby out. That being said, they do this often, and I think that's one of the biggest things that I think moms need to really focus in on. They do this often, so they know what they're doing. You're going to be okay. And if you ever need to go into an emergency C-section, that's okay too. But I really didn't want that. But it was okay if it did happen, but I was first time mom thinking, I want everything natural. I didn't even want the epidural. So it was one day, it was a Saturday. No, it was a Sunday. I don't remember. It was a Saturday, I think. No, it was the weekend, and I was due on Friday. I remember that. And I was really upset because no baby was coming out. So I had a doctor's appointment that day and everything, and I'm like, I have no anything is going on, no contractions, nothing. But I was taking Primrose Oil. So I went ahead and did my next dose of Primrose Oil. And I remember, I think it was Sunday morning, so it was Sunday morning, I started to feel contractions at 8 o'clock in the morning. We went over to the hospital, and the hospital actually didn't believe I was in labor, but I knew because I was having contractions, and they were like, well, you see that there's some contractions, but we don't really think you're actually in labor. I was in labor. And I had some bleeding too, and I never bled my entire pregnancy. And more of the story is I ended up back there at 3 o'clock in the morning on Monday morning. So I knew I was in labor, but I labored mostly at home, which was good. When you labor at home, you get to kind of relax and go through the labor and deal with the contractions and stuff. But I didn't want to go back into the hospital until it was basically go time, which was always part of my plan too. Here's the thing, ladies, when you're going into the hospital and you are now in labor, to be completely honest, your birthing plan is still your birthing plan, but it can go out the window at any moment because it's about baby's safety and your safety, and that's always going to be top of the list for doctors and nurses there for you, because everybody wants to come out of there safely and healthy. So my son was ready to come, and I was on the table getting examined to make sure that I was 4 centimeters, because you can't get what is that called? You can't stay in the hospital until you are 4 centimeters unless you have a different situation with your doctor. In some cases, they'll, as soon as you go and start having contractions, they'll let you stay immediately. But for my hospital, my doctor was 4 centimeters because we were really healthy, everything was fine. So 4 centimeters, and the nurse is going to get the wheelchair, water breaks. And I'm saying to my husband, I think I just peed in my pants. It doesn't feel like pee, but it feels like just a bunch of liquid has come out, and you think, oh, I must have peed myself. I didn't even feel it, but I must have peed myself. Like, you didn't feel like you peed, but you feel all this water and it's in the same area. So you're thinking, oh, I must have peed myself. But no, that's your water. And then I asked the nurse, I'm like, well, when does it stop? And they go, it doesn't. It just keeps coming. And they had towels and everything, and they brought me into the room. And now the contractions were intense. They were very long. Even the doctors and the nurses said that. It was like, oh, wow, the contraction is still going. Needless to say, my son came out. He was healthy. I pushed that boy out, and I did have an epidural, but other than that, everything was completely natural. I don't feel like it feels like you're pooping when you're pushing, but I do feel like it feels like you are pushing with those muscles. So I think that's what a lot of people mean when they say that. But my son came out about a half an hour. We did the mirror. We did a lot of different things. But push and push and push. And like, there were times where it felt like this kid was never going to come out. Now, epidural wise, that's part of my big story here, is that I had that epidural and I have scoliosis, so curvature is fine. So when my epidural was put in, I felt a little bit of a stabbing on the right side, but I didn't think anything of it because I didn't know anything about it. Next day, or because it was 3 o'clock in the morning, by that point, to me, it's still the night of and stuff. So next day my son's born, right? But I'm not feeling great, and my lab work and stuff was showing that I was dealing with something. And the experience actually was not quite great for me, because what ended up happening is I had a spinal leak, which is not uncommon if you have the epidural. So I had spinal headaches. They lasted about 2 weeks, and they feel like one of the worst migraines that you'll ever get, and the only way to get rid of them really is caffeine, which is why I did not breastfeed, because I had to have such high levels of caffeine constantly that I was not comfortable exposing my son to that type of situation, to that type of caffeine. It wasn't going to work for me, so I didn't do it. Now, that being said, it did go away after 2 weeks. Now, if it doesn't, you do have to go get a blood patch. They bring you back in, and they go to the same place, and they try and put like a patch of basically blood in order to help it heal. This doesn't happen to all women, but it can happen, and it did happen to me. It was excruciating, and for a first-time mom, I'm at home with my newborn. I am having these antagonizing headaches. They're migraines, and I thought, this is just not worth it. And And they also prescribed painkillers, but I did not take the painkillers because I just did not want to take any sort of opioid, just in case. I was very afraid of that type of stuff. I don't want to be addicted to anything, and that's just me. If you're the type of person who could take that and not worry about anything, go right ahead. I don't like taking anything I feel like I shouldn't take, so that's me. So anyways, so that was my son. Now my daughter, my son and daughter are 15 months apart. So I had feelings that like I was gonna go into labor, and I was getting very close to my due date. But I talked to my doctor, and we both kind of agreed, like, let's just go ahead and induce her and bring her out. I was so uncomfortable. I wanted to be done with being pregnant, and I intend on having this many more children. 0. I want no more children. So I was like, okay, let's be done with pregnancy entirely. I haven't had a glass of wine in forever. So I'm sitting here with my doctor, and we decide that we're gonna go. I almost said her birthday because it falls on a specific day, and I'm not gonna say what day it is. But we decide, okay, let's go ahead and do this, have the induction. And so that morning I knew I was going to have baby. So it's different with my son. I woke up to, it felt like something changed, and I was going to have my son. And I'll go into some of the differences about how I knew naturally, and then how it went with my daughter. So went into the hospital 5 o'clock in the morning, and they gave me Pitocin, which is commonly used for inducing, but there's a lot of different methods. There's a ton of different things that they do, and I didn't know what method they were going to do for me. It also depends on what mom is going through. If mom has preeclampsia, if mom has diabetes, you know, there's a lot of different things that mom can be going through, and if that's the case, they're gonna do it how it's safe to induce mom if they're going to be inducing you versus a C-section. So if you have any questions on any of the things that you're going to be induced, be sure to ask your doctor, and you can always research when you get home as well if you have any additional questions. Now, Pitocin is known to be a lot harsher, and I'm going to be completely honest, it is. When I finally was feeling those contractions, my son's contractions, with my son, the contractions were intense and very long. And they would reach this peak, and it would just be so bad, and I would think, I can't handle it. And then it would start to die down, but it would take forever. Like, it felt like forever for them to go away. And then as soon as it was done, it started up again. And they say that whole, like, you know when it's gonna happen because it's 1 minute apart and 5 minutes or whatever. I don't remember the stuff anymore now. It's been 8 months almost. But for me, and that's why I think it's important that you'll know when it's kind of time. For me, my son, it was like, because they were so long, it would finish, and I didn't really have that time frame in between before I'd go into the next one. With my daughter, as soon as the contraction started, that intensity that I felt with my son, those were intense, because that was essentially like chemically induced. So they went through the roof. It felt like, I was like, this is like, it's almost like someone took a speaker and then just went all the way up. Like, did you think you couldn't go any further? I'm gonna keep going further. That's what it felt like. It was that intense. And then it would go back down, and it would almost be fast. Like, it was like, oh my God, there's your contraction, and then it stopped. Versus my son, here it comes. Like my illustration, that's what it felt like. So as soon as it finally went go time, it went from 0 to 100. And the reasoning for that is because I also had I tested positive for GBS, I think it's called, which I also tested positive for my son as well. But I was there for, I think he was born at 11, I don't remember exactly the time that he was born. I think he was born around 11 though. So 3 o'clock in the morning, and they gave me the IV, and they also gave me the antibiotics for the GBS thing. And it takes 4 hours for that. So if you tested positive, that's all it is. They're going to give you antibiotics for 4 hours. After that, you and baby are safe. Really, to be completely honest, you and baby are safe. They're checking for anything, and it's not a huge deal. So if you're freaking out about it, I had it twice. Nothing's wrong with my kids. Nothing's wrong with me. They just give you antibiotics. And so I had it for 4 hours. As soon as the 4 hours were done, the nurse went ahead and provided more of the Pitocin, and she tried to make sure, she was an awesome nurse, she tried to make sure that I lasted the 4 hours, because to be completely honest, my daughter was right there ready to go. And so as soon as it was 4 hours, she put the rest of the Pitocin in, which you're supposed to, I think you're supposed to do like 0.5 or something every half an hour. And she was awesome. I'm not gonna go, because I don't know if anything I say is gonna get her in trouble. And what she did was completely fine. I'm fine with it. And but it went go time. It was like, I felt like everything was okay, got the epidural and all that, and then all of a sudden it was like, wow, those are those contractions again. And the thing I did say in both situations after the epidural was like, oh wow, everything's cool. You know, you feel good. You're really paralyzed. They put a catheter in you because you can't feel from the bottom down. But the epidural starts to wear off. So for anybody who thinks like, oh, so you didn't feel anything. Not true. You feel pressure, and then little by little that epidural starts to wear off. And I did not want to not feel anything so that I could push. So I did not press the button to continue the epidural. The nurse did for my son when it was go time for pushing right before, and pretty much right before it was go time for my daughter. But here's the thing, it also takes time to kick in. With my son, I mean, by the time it kicked in, he came out. And with my daughter, the same thing. I mean, she really came out fast. Like, it was like, okay, it's go time, push her out. And it went from 0 to 100 with my daughter. So I felt, I mean, those contractions were intense. That epidural did not kick in. The whole left side of me was, I felt everything. And it was like these intense contractions that almost, my first thought was like, wah, 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 of intensity. Like, that's how intense it became. And I felt everything. And then she finally came out, and you feel, like when they come out, you feel your body just deflate, and you feel the relief immediately. So that's why when they say when they put baby in your arms that you feel relief, it's true. You feel it immediately. So those are the two stories, and I'm going to be completely honest, I don't sit here and think about my labor, and it's only been 2 years with my son, and 7.5 months with my daughter. When they say that you forget right away, you don't forget what a contraction feels like. Maybe 10 years from now, I won't even really remember what it feels like. But you don't think about it because you don't care. Even if you have another baby, it's a time frame. It hurts. It passes. It's done. You recover. You move on from life. The epidural, do I have any issues from it to this day? Not really. I mean, there's some little things here and there that I'd say like, oh, I wonder if that's epidural related, but I also have scoliosis, so it could be that, because I get back pain from that too. So, but I don't care, because nothing is like extreme enough. I don't need to take like Advil or something from it. I mean, maybe for other reasons, but it's not because of labor. And you have your beautiful child, they're in your arms. I will say and remind you again that any of you dads who might be watching this, or soon to be dads, if mom is gonna go through a C-section, she's gonna have a more intense recovery. But if mom is going through natural, you will see her get up probably fairly quickly. Now, that being said, you're not supposed to lift anything for 6 weeks that's probably over 10 pounds. You are still needing to really take care of yourself, even if you're able to walk around. So you still need help. And if you don't have help, you're going to get through it. You're going to be okay. And just make sure to take care of yourself. Make sure to eat and drink things as you need. And if you're breastfeeding, you're going to be starving. I breastfed my children while we were in the hospital. I did not have any caffeine with my son at that time frame, by the way, because I mentioned the spinal headaches, because I did not know I had spinal headaches. I found out as I was being discharged what was going on. Nobody told me. So at that point I knew, okay, and that's when I stopped the breastfeeding and we went to formula. And I was in excruciating pain. So to be completely honest, it was probably best for him and I both to go down the road of formula. But anyways, and that's nobody else's decision but ours, and he's healthy and he's great and it's wonderful. And I have a video about breastfeeding versus formula, and I am an advocate for both. I think that both is wonderful for your children, and I hope that whatever you decide to do, you actually get to do. And if you don't get to breastfeed and you have to formula feed and you feel a certain way about it, just remember, as long as your child is healthy and good, that's what matters. But I will say again that no matter what, when you go into that hospital, that's going to be for the rest of your life. When it comes to kids, everything goes out the window. You don't know what's going to happen because anything can happen. So what's important is to get out of there safely. So don't be so hard on yourself or your child in regards to what it is that you want. You have a birthing plan, great if it happens. If it doesn't, that's fine. It doesn't make you any less of a mom. It doesn't make you any less of an amazing person who went through that labor. You went through that labor. And for those moms who had C-sections, wow, you know, birthing naturally is hard, but going through the recovery of a C-section is no joke. And I think a lot of people look at that like it is an easy way out, and it is not. It's actually harder. So you're amazing for going through that. For you moms who are being induced for medical reasons, also amazing, because induction is no joke. I have been induced, and it was with just the drug and not some of the other methods, and it is excruciatingly painful. It is absolutely more painful than the other. Now, if you have to be induced and you were just told that and you're like, oh my God, it's going to be very painful, it is, but you'll get through it. You'll live. It's fine. You go through the moment, you squeeze the bejesus out of the person who's sitting next to you. If that's the nurse, that's the nurse, and then you get through it. And you have that baby in your arms, and you guys are fine, because that's the whole point of it. Now, some of the major differences of being induced, obviously, I didn't have to go through the bloody show or any of that kind of stuff, really. She was coming and I felt it, but my daughter kept moving out of position, so we didn't get to go through natural labor, and I was like, that's fine, let's just induce and get rid of it. Not rid of it, not like that, but like rid of the pregnancy. Oh wow, that sounds bad no matter which way I say it. I mean, having my daughter, I just wanted to get rid of being in that condition and have my baby in my arms and in my life again. I wanted baby home with me. And with my son, I went through all of the things that you're supposed to go through. I went through the mucus plug starting to shed. I went through the bloody show, and then I started the contractions, and then I went to the hospital, and the contractions went from small into bigger, and had the epidural, then pushed to have my son come out. I mean, it was, with the exception of the epidural, it was completely natural. And it was a wonderful experience to go through that. That bloody show is real. You will notice that something like plops out, and if you look into the toilet, you'll see that it almost looks like textbook bloody show. So it was amazing when that happened. I was like, oh, baby's coming. And it was like I was mentally trying to prepare myself. Now with him, I had a very good calm feeling. It's a weird thing that happens, but you may just get really calm right when you go into labor. Your husband will be running around probably screaming, or your girlfriend or your wife or your boyfriend or your best friend or the nurse. But the person who's helping you may be running around, but you may have like a serious calm until the contractions really start. And it's not so much that you're freaking out because baby's coming, you're freaking out because of more of the intensity of that pain, because it's nothing like you'll ever experience unless you've had a kidney stone, in which case I haven't, and I don't know. They say that it's supposed to be the same. Okay, so that was my birthing story. Like I said, I've had my 2, and that's really it. So if you have any questions or anything I may have left out that you're curious about, please feel free to comment below. If you have not, please subscribe to my channel. I'd love to talk to any and every one of you, and just go through anything that needs to be said. I think my next video is going to be parenting hacks. Because I haven't done it in a long time. I have a list of videos that I really want to do, but please subscribe, because another one of the videos I want to do after parenting hacks is newborns, all about newborns and everything that I learned from having my 2 newborns. They were very different children, and they still are very different children. I love them both tremendously, but just a kind of a guide to help some of you new moms out there. But next Saturday will be parenting hacks. So actually, I have a series of that. If you're interested, just go to my channel, click on the Parenting Hacks playlist, or also just look up GBR Life and you'll be able to find that. Remember, you can go to gbrlife.com to see any of my blogs. The vlogs are available there as well, and you can also check out my podcast. GBR Life of Parenting is coming in December. Can't wait to share that with all of you. So until then, subscribe, and I'll see you next Saturday.